Following the Japanese Grand Prix, it was up into the air once more for the Grand Prix circus and south down to Australia and to Adelaide in South Australia, which has now become the traditional home of the final round of the Formula One season each year. This year, of course, the World Championship title had already been decided in Japan, but that didn't spoil this final race of the year at all. Part of the tradition in Adelaide, where the race has been for 4 years now, has been this end-of-term photograph, and it always finds the drivers in very cheerful mood. It's been a long, hard season, and now, after Australia, they can look forward to relaxation. And that's particularly something Ayrton Senna's looking forward to. He now knows he is the world champion, and this man, Alain Prost, as he talks to another ex-champion, Niki Lauda, knows that he's got to wait until 1989 to have another crack at the title. But there's a race to have a crack at for all of these people, and of course it's the final race under the turbocharged regulations. This Honda engine, this turbocharged Ferrari, and all of the others, the Megatron BMW-based four-cylinder, which to earlier regulations gave over 1,000 horsepower in qualifying, the German Zack-Speed, another four-cylinder, and the sight that we've so often seen with flames coming from the exhaust of these turbocharged cars, all of that will become a thing of the past for next year. As for this year, of course, there is still one more race to go, and every year, it seems, the Australians give a better and better welcome to the Grand Prix circus. This is the 4th time that they've been to Adelaide, down here in South Australia, a very demanding 2.34-mile road circuit round the streets of the town, bumpy, twisty, lots of right-angled corners, hard-on transmissions, and particularly always hard-on brakes. And like any other road circuit, just like Monte Carlo, there are plenty of curbs and walls waiting for the unwary. Will McLaren be able to go out of this storybook season with another win? If they can, it'll be 15 out of 16. And among all the talk and gossip about next year is the news that Brabham will return to Formula One in 1989, but also that the whole team has been sold by its owner, Bernie Ecclestone.
Well, the team's been acquired by Mr. Bruin, that is the owner of the Euro Bruin team. And I'm happy to see that Brabham's back where it should be in Formula One.
Are you still going to have some control over it?
I never had any control in the past, so I suppose I'll have the same as I had then.
But it's operating from your premises?
It's operated, nothing's changed. It's operating from exactly where it's always operated from. All the people that have always been there are there. The only missing link is me. That's probably going to be a good thing for Brabham.
So what are you going off to do then?
What I always do, and probably they'll add a bit more on, generally with Formula One and the FIA.
But will you oversee Brabham still?
I'm going to try to hold their hand as long as they need me, which probably is a couple of weeks.
Well, now, if we can come to this season, it's been a season dominated by McLaren. Do you think it has been boring for that reason?
No, I mean, I said very early on in the season that if people understood what was going on, it's exactly what we want. It's a World Drivers' Championship, and here we had 2 drivers getting exactly the same equipment and being fairly looked after the whole season, and you had 2 drivers fighting for a World Championship.
Did you feel it was a shame, though, that there weren't more involved, that the normally aspirated cars weren't more on hand with the turbos?
Well, it's a shame, but I wasn't surprised, because there's never been such a thing as an equivalence formula, and we knew that the turbos were... what the shame was that the other turbo cars didn't get their act together. I mean, Ferrari have had a dismal season, and if they'd have been doing the job properly, there would have been much more competition for McLaren. I don't think it's McLaren have done an outstandingly good job. I think they've had certainly probably the 2 best drivers in the world, and they've got a very, very, very good team headed up by Ron Dennis, and it is a good team. And with Gordon looking after the engineering side of things, it's probably as good as you can get. But the others have been doing an equally bad job, so the gap's been a lot wider than it should have been.
So they've had a slap wrist, and it should be a bit more competitive next year?
They've been able to sort of cruise the whole year.
So next year?
Next year they'll have to get their act together. Brabham's back.
Well, as ever, McLaren very much had their act together in Adelaide, and throughout qualifying it was Senna versus Prost for pole position. Ayrton Senna driving with an injured wrist after a footballing accident on holiday between Japan and Australia. but nevertheless, it was pole position for Ayrton once again, his 13th of the season. Alain Prost, however, was fastest on Friday, and Alain Prost particularly anxious to show that he may not have won that World Championship title, but he is determined to be every bit as quick as Ayrton Senna, and indeed come the race even quicker. Fascinating needle match still going on between these two, even though the championship battle itself is resolved. Honour of being fastest non-McLaren qualifier went to Nigel Mansell. So what did he think his chances were here in Adelaide?
Remote, I would say, if you want the honest answer. McLaren have already won 14 races this year, and Ferrari won the other one. I think unless they break down, no one stands a chance of beating them this year. They've been so dominant. On saying that, we're obviously out there competing, trying to win. We look like we've shot ourselves in the foot again, or shall I say the team has shot themselves in the foot, because we've got brake problems. It looks like our brakes are going to wear out before the end of the race.
That's something really that has happened to everybody, hasn't it, over the past? This really has a sting in the tail, this race.
Yes, but I mean, historically, when it's happened to you before, you should sort of make amends and put it right. And it looks like we've got quite a significant problem. I mean, they've forecasted, I won't say exactly how many laps, but it's well before the end of the race that we won't have any brakes. So, I mean, I'm already now thinking for the first sort of 20 laps on full tanks that I don't go racing. I mean, I just sit there and maybe let a lot of people come past me, because unless you get to the end of the race with brakes, you can't race.
Well, you, more than anyone, know just how difficult this street circuit is. Do you not think the same thing could happen to McLarens as it has in the past?
No, I think they would have. I think, to be fair, when any car's about 2 seconds a lap quicker than any other car, they can go quick down the straights and conserve it around the corners, brake early. Whereas the aspirated cars, being as they're so slow down the straight, they have to make it up all round corners. You only make it up round corners by going deep into them, braking hard, and going through the corner as quick as you can. And conversely, with McLaren or any Honda runner, they can just blast down the straight, cruise around the corners, and away you go.
So you think it really will be a turbo race?
Oh, there's no question. You name me a race this year that hasn't been.
Very true, but a chance on the podium, surely?
I'd like to hope, excuse me, I'd like to hope so, but we've got our own little problems, as I said, just with brakes. So we'll be out there trying, you know we will be, but it doesn't look too bright at the moment.
Gerhard Berger, 4th quickest with the Ferrari, after all sorts of problems in practice, which included misfiring, hitting a wall, and generally having to come to terms with a car that, while quick, was using its fuel much too quickly. But Gerhard Berger, last year's winner, already confirmed as 3rd in this year's championship, is always determined to go well. And here's the outgoing champion. Nelson Piquet still carrying number 1 on the Lotus, that's Peter Wall, his team boss, and Frank Durney will be joining this team from Williams for next year when they'll be running Judd engines. And Nelson Piquet, an impressive 5th quickest in practice, much happier with the car than of late. And there's the Judd engine in the back of Riccardo Patrese's Williams. It's Patrese, of course, who will stay with the Williams team next year. They'll be using Renault engines, and Thierry Boutsen, the Belgian, will be his new teammate. And Riccardo Patrese was pleased to be 6th quickest in qualifying. And 7th quickest, and a man enjoying his 100th Grand Prix here in Adelaide, the popular British driver Derek Warwick, who was an impressive 6th fastest on Friday.
Yes, it was a good effort yesterday. A bit disappointed today because I thought that we could get in the mid-19s, which would have put us sort of 4th, 5th, 6th on the grid. But to start 7th with our package, I think is a good effort, and I'm quite pleased, really.
It's going to be quite a hard race. Hard on fuel consumption for the turbos?
Hard on everything. Hard on fuel consumption, hard on driver, hard on mechanics. Just about everything here is stretched to the maximum. Fuel consumption is probably our biggest problem. It'd be good to see a checker flag tomorrow afternoon, that's for sure.
Well, it's important for you to have a good finish here, isn't it?
Yes, it is. You know, we've got it all to lose here, really, and nothing to gain, because we can't catch the 3rd place teams. We're currently lying 4th, and with a good finish here, I can finish 6th in the World Championship and stay 4th in the Constructors, and that'd be a fantastic season.
Better for the turbos or for the normally aspirated, do you feel?
It's a normally aspirated circuit, really. Obviously, the 2 Hondas are on the front row, but I think that's grunt as much as anything else. I think you'll see the Williams running very strong here. luckily the marchers seem to be struggling a little bit, so therefore maybe we can take a few points ahead of them.
Last race for the turbos. Are you looking forward to saying goodbye to them and getting back to normally aspirated?
I've got two views on that. You know, this is my 100th Grand Prix, and I've done all of them in a turbocharged car. They were good times, exciting times, and I'm very glad to have been around during that era. But I think it's good for Formula One the way that the rules have gone. I think you're going to see closer racing, harder racing, and I think the driver will play a bigger part, which is good for everybody.
The Benettons are normally among the quickest of the normally aspirated cars, but round the bumps of Adelaide they looked very nervous, and Alessandro Nannini was not too happy after qualifying.
But the last 2 days, I think yesterday is very difficult because the circuit was better, and all the people pushed very hard, and you found a lot of people along the circuit.
So a lot of traffic. So you're a bit disappointed with the qualifying position?
No, as a point for the qualified position, you find every time some laps, 3 laps, but not a good laps. Yesterday I did a good laps, but after I found some people, and some 3 laps is not very perfect.
Now a little bit better in the warm-up today.
Yeah, it's not bad. Our guys with a full tank is okay.
Well, what chances of victory then?
Yeah, victory is difficult because I think it's impossible because the victory every time is a McLaren victory, and but you can arrive in good position, 3rd, 4th, 5th position you can arrive. 2nd, 3rd is I think is busy.
But do you think even 2nd and 3rd are busy?
2nd, 3rd maybe is busy. I don't know. And we try. We must arrive in this race because this race is very hard. 80 laps is harder for the car, for the pilots, for all.
How are the brakes and tyres?
The brakes, we have new brakes. Maybe it's okay, our brakes. Last year, a lot of cars had a problem with the brakes.
But you've got yours sorted out okay?
Yes, I think it's okay.
And the tyres?
The tyres, I think, is no big problem.
No change?
No change, I think.
So you still think the McLarens are going to do it?
Yeah.
Drivers are very pessimistic about this. Why are you continually convinced?
No, because every race the McLarens have 2 seconds quicker of other car, and they also here have 1 second, 1 second half at the lap quicker, and 1 second, 1 second and a half is a lot. It's not 2 tenths, 3 tenths. It's okay. Maybe you can arrive if you push hard. You can pass, but 1 second, 1 second and a half in 20 laps take a lot second.
But don't you believe the unexpected always happens here?
I don't know. We must wait. We wait. Maybe.
9th quickest is Ivan Capelli with the March, and whatever happens here in Adelaide, he's got the memories of leading the Japanese Grand Prix to keep him warm over the winter.
Leading the Grand Prix in front of our sponsor, just in front of the pit lane, was exciting for everybody, but too short. This is the problem.
What happened then? Did you remember?
Coming out from the chicane, I was really behind Prost, and he missed a gear. So I take the chance and I overtook him on the left side. Unfortunately, with the turbo car, they could put all the power down and then overtake me again before the first corner on the right. But otherwise, it was quite exciting.
Well, here we might have hoped you to do just as well as you did there. What's been happening here?
Some few problems during the practice. Stupid problem, and that gave us some difficulties on setting the car. As you know, our car in the street circuit is not really competitive. We work a lot during the year, but if you remember in Monaco and Detroit, we had some problem, and here we are in the middle situation between the good race circuit and the bad performance. So we are happy to be in the first 10 places on the grid, and I think that the winner will come out from the first 10 people.
Well, presumably it would be nice to have a good result just to end the year so that you start next year well too.
Unfortunately, we were 3rd in Jerez and at least 2nd in Japan, and we had 2 problems with the engine in Jerez and an electrical failure in Japan. So we lose some points. It could be nice to have these points back here before our holidays.
Because it's quite tough on the Constructors' Championship, isn't it? You're really quite close with Lotus and Arrows.
Yeah, we need just 3 points for being in front of Lotus, and for us it could be a very good prize. I mean, to be in front of a team so big and so important.
Do you think any chance of leading this race as well?
Quite hard at the moment. We will try to do our best as usual. I think that there will be a very, very difficult and tough race here.
One of the worst of the year?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
10th quickest, the other Benetton of the phlegmatic Belgian, Thierry Boutsen. His last race for this team because, of course, he goes to the Williams-Renault team for next year. A gearbox problem stranded Thierry out on the circuit during Friday qualifying, and on Saturday, traffic prevented him from getting higher up the grid than 10th. And a very impressive 11th quickest, the young Italian Alex Caffi, who seems to get the Dallara around most circuits quicker and quicker at every Grand Prix outing.
I think it was possible for me to be quicker, but I think that behind me I have Marchijad, Benetton Ford, and I think it's impossible to be faster with this driver and this car. I am very happy to stay in the 11th position.
Why so good here?
In Adelaide, I hope very much in Adelaide because it's the last race, and I don't know, it's a circuit, a slow circuit, and my car was very good in the slow circuit, same Detroit, same Hungary, and I hope to arrive to the famous point in this circuit. I don't know, but I prove tomorrow.
Perhaps a very long and tiring race. Do you think you're strong enough?
Yes, I am fitting very much, and I don't know, no, but it's very hard tomorrow for the warm. It's very hard for the 82 laps, and I don't know. I hope that the other driver had more problem than me.
And next year you stay with Dallara?
Yes, I signed a contract for 2 years, 88 and 89, but I think no problem. I'm very happy to stay here, and I hope for a day to arrive in a good position to the podium with the Dallara.
Somewhat embarrassed to be behind young Caffi was the much more experienced Italian Michele Alboreto, who had a qualifying session full of problems. He had to switch to the spare car on Saturday afternoon and found it had a down-on-power engine. 13th quickest, Satoru Nakajima in the second Lotus, now confirmed here in Adelaide that he will be remaining with the Lotus team throughout 1989, with, of course, Judd normally aspirated engines for next year. Minardi team boss Giancarlo Minardi was pleased to have both his cars qualifying safely for the final Grand Prix of the year, with Pierluigi Martini in an impressive 14th place on the grid. 15th on the grid was Andrea de Cesaris with the Real, and he might have been higher up the grid had he not ignored his pit signals telling him to come in and run out of fuel out on the circuit. He also managed to have several spins and blow an engine. A normal qualifying period for Andrea. This is Frenchman Philippe Strepp with the AGS. He was 16th quickest. And then just behind him on the grid, the British driver Jonathan Palmer with the Tyrrell Ford. It was a good effort for him because he had all sorts of handling problems, but then in the Sunday morning warm-up he crashed and had to start the race in the spare. Here's Eddie Cheever. 2 blown engines on Friday and a shortage of turbo boost on Saturday meant that the mechanics had plenty of work to do, and Eddie Cheever was unhappy to be 18th. Here's the other march. This is, of course, Mauricio Gugelmin, the personable Brazilian, who was 19th on the grid in his first visit to Adelaide. Stefano Modena was 20th in the Eurobrunn, of course the team that will be allied to Brabham for next year. And then behind Modena came the other Minardi of the Spanish driver Luis Sala, who qualified more comfortably than he usually does in 21st spot. Another man who's had all sorts of qualifying difficulties this year is Stefan Johansson, and he was relieved in his last Grand Prix for Ligier, perhaps some say even his last ever Grand Prix, to qualify safely in 22nd spot. His teammate René Arnoux was a little bit slower, 23rd, but nothing ever seems to bring René Arnoux' last Grand Prix. He's going to go on forever. Philippe Alliot's efforts to stop didn't come off at this corner. He went solidly into the barriers, and that didn't help his qualifying. He ended up 24th on the penultimate row of the grid with the Lola. And on the back row, Oscar Larori, the Argentinian, with the Euro Brun. Like so many other drivers, Larori found that this is a very tough circuit on brakes. And last qualifier, Piercarlo Ghinzani with the turbocharged Zakspeed from Germany, scraping in 26th and last on the grid. The non-qualifiers, Gabriele Tarquini with the Coloni, 16th fastest on Friday, but it went downhill from there for him. Julian Bailey, who was about a second off the pace in the end after gearbox problems and some spins with the Tyrrell. Pierre-Henri Raffanel, who jumped into the second Lola at the last minute because its normal driver, Yannick Dalmas, is still at home in France unwell. And Bernd Schneider with the other Zakspeed, who never really came to grips with the Adelaide circuit at all, his first visit. And the man who had to sit out the whole of qualifying, having failed to pre-qualify, Nicola Larini with the Azella. Race day was warm, few spots of rain, definitely overcast, and with 82 laps, this was going to be a very grueling race for man and machine. It was Alain Prost who made the best start. Ayrton Senna hung fire a bit, and Nigel Mansell was up there, as was Gerhard Berger, who slotted into third place behind the two McLarens right from the start. Miraculously, everybody got away cleanly, and it was Alain Prost leading, Ayrton Senna second, Gerhard Berger third and pulling away, and then Nigel Mansell in fourth place ahead of Nelson Piquet and Riccardo Patrese in the other Williams. Nelson Piquet was quickly past Nigel Mansell and into fourth place with the Lotus. Lots of locking up of wheels at the end of that long straight, but Alain Prost it was who'd made the break, and Ayrton Senna, somewhat to his surprise, found his mirrors full of Gerhard Berger's Ferrari, which was pushing very, very hard. There were question marks about Gerhard Berger's fuel consumption. The McLarens couldn't believe that he could go as quickly as this and still keep going to the end of the race. Riccardo Patrese was pushing hard too, and Nigel Mansell, carrying out his promise to go gently in the early stages, let him through to fifth place. Before very long, Gerhard Berger was right on the tail of Ayrton Senna and pushing him very hard indeed. That's Riccardo Patrese. And there, coming down the straight, goes Berger, slotting down the inside and outbraking Ayrton Senna. Senna doesn't want to let him go through. Berger's up the curb, but somehow they all sort it out, and the Ferrari is through to second place. The new world champion is demoted to third. Still Nelson Piquet fourth, ahead of the two Williams Judds of Patrese fifth and Nigel Mansell sixth. Gerhard Berger, setting fastest lap after fastest lap, inexorably crept closer and closer to Prost, and Alain Prost could only wonder at his fuel consumption and hope that the Ferrari was putting on a demonstration for the final race of the year and was not too worried about whether its fuel would go to the end of the race. And there goes Berger to take the lead in the 1988 Australian Grand Prix, demote Alain Prost down to a surprised second place and pull away. But we'll never know how long that Ferrari would have stayed out in front, how long its fuel would have lasted, because as Gerhard Berger started to lead the McLarens up into the back markers, there were problems. This is Berger lapping René Arnoux' Ligier, and Arnoux just doesn't want to let him through. That was the end of Gerhard Berger's race. That was the end of Gerhard Berger's 1988 season. And sadly, Berger was left to walk home alongside René Arnoux, although they weren't really talking to one another. Alain Prost was left with an easy run to a checkered flag, which brought him his 35th Grand Prix victory and showed that Ayrton Senna may be champion, but Alain Prost can still show a thing or two. Senna finishing second, 36 seconds down, with Piquet third ahead of Patrese, Boutsen and Capelli. And after the race, the question that everybody wanted to ask Alain Prost was, did he think that Gerhard Berger could have kept going on his fuel to the end?
I had a breakfast this morning with Gerhard, and I knew that he wanted to go with full boost and didn't care about the fuel consumption, because they were so bad in fuel consumption that they knew they could not win the race. So I did not take care of him and just let him pass in the straight and just wait for the right moment. Then the moment he could not go quicker because of fuel consumption. So I was happy when he had a problem with Arno, but he didn't change anything on the sort of the race.
So it's a little prior knowledge helped.
Yeah, exactly.
Then when he dropped out, you kept up the pace very much, didn't you?
Yeah, I tried to keep the rhythm same and just be okay on fuel consumption. Not going too hard on braking because I was very aware of the brakes, and I could have been much quicker, but I just wanted to be constant on the lap time and be careful on the fuel consumption. During the weekend I was a little bit better than Ayrton on the fuel consumption, so I was not too worried. I had some margin.
Any problems at all then?
Two problems. One very big was the gearbox again, from second to third. I had a lot of problems, missed a lot of gears like Suzuka, and also 20 laps to go. Two cars crashed. I don't remember where exactly, and led something on the track, and I broke my front wing skirt. Then the setting of the car, the balance of the car was very bad, but I had a lot of seconds ahead Ayrton, so it was not a problem.
Nice to win the last one though.
It's very important for me. It was a lot of polemics last few weeks, and I wanted to win the last one. It was also very important for the historic point of view. I won 35 races with a turbo engine, and that is a lot.
Exclusive coverage of final qualifying. The local Brazilian TV company is having a problem with their shots of the action, so let's go straight